When I was 10 years old, my parents took me to a crowded shopping mall, handed me a $20 bill, and told me to wait by the food court while they went to look at some tools in the hardware anchor store. I sat at a sticky plastic table for 6 hours. I watched the mall empty out. I watched the metal shutters slide down over the storefronts. I didn't cry at first because I truly believed they were just stuck in traffic. They never came back. My parents, Richard and Vanessa, didn't just lose me, they packed up their entire apartment, closed their bank accounts, and vanished into thin air. I spent the next 8 years bouncing around the foster care system in Oregon. Foster care isn't a movie, it's a meat grinder. I lived with people who only wanted the state stipend check, and I lived with people who treated me like an unpaid servant. The day I turned 18, I aged out of the system with nothing but a duffel bag of faded clothes and a burning determination to never rely on anyone else again. I worked 3 jobs. I scrubbed toilets, flipped burgers, and eventually taught myself how to build websites. By the time I was 26, I had a stable life. I owned a modest condo, ran a small but profitable digital marketing agency, and had a tight-knit circle of real friends. I had completely buried the memory of Richard and Vanessa. They were dead to me. Then, 3 months ago, my phone rang. It was an unknown number from a California area code. Austin. Is that really you? The voice was older, raspier, but it triggered an immediate, visceral spike of adrenaline in my chest. It was my mother, Vanessa. How did you get this number? I asked, my voice flat and icy. Oh, Austin, honey. We've been searching for you for years, she sobbed into the receiver. It sounded incredibly practiced. We made a horrible mistake. We were young, we were heavily in debt, and we had a severe panic attack. We thought the state would give you a better life than we ever could. We've regretted it every single day. Please, your father and I just want to see you. We want to be a family again. I sat at my desk, gripping the edge so hard my knuckles turned white. You abandoned a 10-year-old child in a mall. You didn't leave a mistake, you left a human being. Never call me again. I hung up and blocked the number. But they didn't stop. Over the next 2 weeks, they tracked down my business email. They sent messages on LinkedIn. My father even created a fake Instagram account just to comment on my business posts, writing things like, "Son, please forgive your loving parents, we miss you." I was completely baffled. Why now? Why after 16 years of absolute silence were they suddenly putting this much effort into finding me? Narcissists don't change overnight. They don't suddenly develop a conscience after a decade and a half. They operate entirely on incentives. I assumed they were broke, sick, or needed a kidney. The real answer arrived on a Tuesday morning in the form of a man named Arthur Pendleton. Arthur walked into my office wearing a bespoke charcoal suit that probably cost more than my first car. He carried a leather briefcase and looked like the archetype of an old money estate lawyer. "Mr. Austin Vance," he asked, extending a manicured hand. "Yes. Can I help you?" "My name is Arthur Pendleton. I am the senior partner at Pendleton and Associates in San Francisco. I have been looking for you for approximately 4 weeks, Mr. Vance. It seems your parents made it quite difficult to locate your current whereabouts, as they filed multiple fraudulent missing persons reports using incorrect Social Security details over the years." I frowned, gesturing for him to sit. "My parents are currently stalking me online. What do they have to do with you?" Arthur smiled a thin, knowing smile. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick, bound legal document. They have nothing to do with me. But your grandfather, Charles Vance, had everything to do with me. I don't have a grandfather. My parents told me both of their families cut them off before I was born. That is partially true, Arthur explained, adjusting his glasses. Charles Vance was a phenomenally wealthy real estate developer in Northern California. He was an incredibly strict, traditional man. When your father, Richard, stole $500,000 from the family firm to fund his gambling addiction and subsequently ran away with your mother, Charles completely disowned him. He legally stripped Richard of his name, his inheritance, and his rights to the family legacy. Arthur tapped the document on the desk. However, 3 years ago, Charles hired a private investigator. He wanted to know if Richard had ruined any other lives. The investigator found the police reports from the mall. Charles learned that his own son had abandoned his grandson. My breath hitched. He knew. He knew. And it broke the old man's heart. Charles spent the last 2 years of his life rewriting his entire estate plan. He passed away 6 weeks ago, Mr. Vance. His total estate, consisting of commercial real estate holdings, stock portfolios, and liquid cash accounts, is valued at just over $14 million. Arthur looked me dead in the eye. Under the terms of the will, Richard and Vanessa are explicitly mentioned. They are left exactly $1 each, on the condition that they sign a waiver acknowledging they have received their full share of the estate. The remaining $14 million, along with the family estate in Napa Valley, has been left entirely, unconditionally, to you. The room started to spin. $14 million. I had spent my teenage years counting pennies to buy a box of generic mac and cheese, and now I was a multimillionaire because an old man I never met wanted to right a wrong. There is one catch, Arthur added. In order for the probate court to release the funds to you, your parents must sign that $1 waiver to clear the title of the estate. Because the will explicitly disinherits them, they are attempting to contest it. They are arguing that Charles was of unsound mind, and they are claiming that you are an impostor. That is why they have been trying to contact you. They don't want a family, Austin. They want a DNA sample or a recorded conversation where you agree to split the money with them to drop the lawsuit. A cold, lethal anger washed over me. The puzzle pieces finally clicked. The tears, the emails, the Instagram comments, it wasn't motherly love. It was a calculated corporate raid on a dead man's money using the son they left in a food court as the key. What happens if I don't give them a DNA sample or talk to them? I asked. Then we go to court, Arthur said, a predatory glint in his eye. And as your grandfather's attorney, I can tell you. I have a mountain of evidence showing exactly why they were disowned. But it will take time, and it will be messy. Let's make it messy, I said. I unblocked my mother's number and called her back. She answered on the first ring. Austin. Oh, praise God, I knew you'd call your mama back. I know about Grandfather Charles, I said, cutting through her theatrical sobbing like a buzzsaw. I know about the $14 million. And I know you left me at a mall because you're greedy, spineless cowards. The line went dead silent for a long 3 seconds. When she spoke again, the sweet, maternal voice was completely gone. It was replaced by a sharp, venomous hiss. Listen to me, you little brat. That is our money. Richard is his biological son. We raised you for 10 years, we clothed you, we fed you. You owe us everything. If it wasn't for us, you wouldn't even exist. You're going to sign half of that estate over to us, or we will drag your name through the mud and tie up that money in court until you're old and gray. My father grunted in the background. Tell the kid he doesn't know who he's messing with. I know exactly who I'm messing with, I said calmly. The two people who are about to lose a legal battle to a team of lawyers funded by $14 million. See you in court, Vanessa. The legal battle lasted 4 months. My parents hired a greasy, low-tier billboard lawyer who tried every dirty trick in the book. They claimed I was a fraudulent child placed by the foster system to steal the money. They claimed my grandfather was suffering from severe dementia when he signed the will. But Arthur was a masterclass professional. We countersued them for malicious prosecution and introduced the original police reports from 2010. We brought in the social workers who handled my case, who testified to the absolute neglect and psychological trauma I endured. Most damagingly, Arthur produced a video recording of my grandfather, filmed 2 weeks before his death. In the video, Charles Vance looked frail but sharp as a whip. He looked directly into the camera and said, "To my son, Richard, and his wretched wife, Vanessa. You threw away my grandson like garbage. You are a disgrace to the Vance name. I am leaving this fortune to Austin because he survived your malice and grew into a man of honor. If you attempt to steal this from him, my lawyers have instructions to release the forensic accounting of your theft from my firm to the district attorney. Enjoy your dollar." The judge threw their case out within 30 minutes. Not only did they lose the contest, but the judge ordered them to pay my full legal fees for bringing a frivolous and malicious lawsuit. Because they couldn't afford my legal fees, my lawyers filed a lien against their only asset, a heavily mortgaged, run-down townhouse in Sacramento. They were forced to sell it to pay me back. The day the estate was finalized, I received a certified envelope in the mail. Inside were 2 checks for $1 each, returned to the estate because Richard and Vanessa had refused to sign the waiver. I framed those 2 $1 bills. They hang in the lobby of my new corporate office building in downtown San Francisco. My parents are currently living in a rented trailer outside of Reno. My father is working night shifts as a security guard, and my mother deletes her social media accounts every few weeks because my followers keep dropping the link to this story in her comments section. My grandfather wanted to right a wrong, and through his legacy, I was able to build a life they could only dream of. They thought a $20 bill was enough to get rid of me at 10 years old. Turns out, that $20 was the best investment I ever made. So, jury, did I go too far by taking their house and completely bankrupting them, or did they get the exact return on investment they deserved? The verdict is yours. Let me know in the comments.